And one of the most beneficial parts about being involved in urban agriculture and community gardens is that we do spend a lot of time outside, even with our class. Yeah, so as Negan said, I teach, now I'm teaching 3 courses at the university. I'm doing food security and environmental science. And then I'm doing, this summer, I'm doing a field course in urban agriculture and rural food systems. And then in the fall, I'm doing environmental citizenship, partly as a response to the first 2 courses, to kind of deal with some of my internal angst and frustration about upcoming generations in relationship to their commitment to change. I think I'll just stop there. I wanted to start with this picture of sunflowers in the field, simply because I knew it'd be inside, and I don't know, there's something about sunflowers that it made me feel hopeful. Maybe it's in how small they start and how fragile they are when we put them in the ground. Maybe it's about how willing they are to come up and come forth. One of my favorite times in Fort City Community Garden is when the seeds are ready in our sunflowers and the finches, goldfinches, are constantly dive bombing in every direction, and you can sit and build a sitting area, which we'll talk about in a bit, in the middle of the garden, this T with benches. Everyone in the neighborhood just comes and sits in. And the finches, the goldfinches, they're flying back and forth, and there's seeds flying everywhere, and they're eating, and they're pooping, and they're planting all at the same time. And I love that. And so when I think about a picture like this, and you're going to see a number of sunflowers, and I think about urban agriculture, bioremediation, open spaces, and all that. I like the sunflower. It just sends me the right message. It tells me that it's like it's my measuring stick for what time of the year it is. I can tell just by looking at the size of the sunflower where we are. We're getting knee-high right now. I know that things are just starting to come in and to be harvestable. I know when sunflowers are getting about knee-high, I can go and yank some of my first radishes. I know I can do some first cuttings on my herbs. I know I can pull out some kale and lettuce. And pulled out about 10 different kinds of lettuces out of the gardens and made this absolutely beautiful salad with this, here's a shameless plug for the Downtown Windsor Farmers Market, which I run. One of our new vendors, she makes fattoush salad dressing, and so all these fresh greens, mizunas and kales and leaf lettuces and all some green mustards. Green mustards would be another good hopeful vegetable too, because it will willingly seed itself right across your farm if you let it, and I like that kind of initiative. I wish that we had, and when it came to community gardens and open spaces, and I wish we had that kind of initiative, like green mustard initiative. Just like popping over there, I was telling my class about walking onions. And walking onions are neat because they grow this great big tall stalk and little bulbs on the top of it, and then they fall over and plant themselves. Maybe we could call them drunk onions or something like that. But that's good too. They're moving across. But green mustard, man, that stuff just flies across your field if you just let it go to seed. I like that. So for many of you, I want to start from the beginning. When I first came to Windsor, I came here willingly. A lot of people are shocked at that. I love Windsor. Sometimes I feel like the only people who don't like Windsor are the ones that were born here. Because I meet a lot of Windsorites who say, Windsor, I can't wait to get, well, maybe that's about, that's sort of like, where you're born and you just want to find someplace new. But we moved here on purpose. And I love it. I absolutely love the city. I love where we are. I think it's a gem that's not so hidden anymore. And when I first moved here, I saw this vacant lot in Fort City. And I noticed that it served a purpose in the community. It was a collector of couches and mattresses and wacky activity and dump just about any lot you can see. Once, that pile is magical. 1 week ago, there would have been nothing there, and then somebody dropped a wheelbarrow load, and before you know it, you'll have 5 tons of material there. It just grows magically, and that's maybe an inner city phenomena, how that happens. It's like if somebody leaves a dumpster with the lid off of it overnight. Have you noticed that? The next day, it's overflowing with couches and mattresses, furniture galore, big giant TVs. You don't even know how they got them over there. It's incredible. It's like that old theory about how plants grew. They just sort of spontaneously came out of nowhere. And I saw this vacant lot, and at that time, Fort City was kind of, it hadn't sort of picked up the baton and said, we can make things better. And they were starting to consider it, and at the same time I was thinking about, there's got to be a better purpose for this string of 3 vacant lots. And we went to the city and we asked them, we said, we want these 3 vacant lots and we want to put in a community garden. And they said, well, why would you want to do that? And the exact reply of our former mayor isn't that going backwards towards the 1940s and 50s? And I ignored that. And after about 2 years, we were successful in getting legal to allow us to take possession of these 3 vacant lots that they were in bad shape. And they were in such bad shape that we had to start by digging down. This was our first set of trenches, with digging down and digging out drive shafts and transmissions and all kinds of backfill that happened there. And I had thought to myself, people were saying, why are you doing this? And we had started to ask ourselves, a group of us, when did we lose the connection to what we ate, how it grew and where it came from, and that there wasn't potato trees and nobody knew, or it seemed like nobody knew where their food was coming and how far it was coming. And this is a while back for Windsor, and we were just sort of starting out with this. And I looked at these lots, and I saw something else. I saw that, here's an opportunity to make something better in the neighborhood, to help facilitate some sort of change. And a few years later, the garden started growing a lot of food, and we got a lot of press for that. And I thought this was fantastic. We're growing all this food, and we're doing what we said we were going to do. But the longer I was involved in community gardening, the more I noticed that it really wasn't about the food. I thought it was about the food. I headed into this with this expectation that my community garden was going to be a new source of urban agriculture, and we were going to grow food, and we were going to remediate the soil, and we were going to turn this place into an open space where anyone could come. And in fact, we have a motto at Fort City Community Garden, and that is Our garden is a place where you can come and fail. We're not going to give you a hard time when you insist on doing it your way. We will let you do it your way. If you garden in Ford City, you will know we have lots of very strong personalities. And you can tell them that, you know, your row of corn, you've got all these little things of corn coming up side by side by side, and you can tell them, I can name the name. I can say, Neil, you really should weed out. You should thin out your corn. It's not going to grow to, you know, its full potential. Now, I've told Neil this is year 3, and I was looking at his corn yesterday, and he's still got them planted side by next. You can't even get your finger in between them. And Neil loves growing corn, and he grows corns and he grows beans in there, and that's what he does. And he's really passionate about it. And his stalks only get about this high, and he can never figure it out. And I tell him every year, you know, you should thin out these rows of corn, you know. So we let Neil garden how he wants to garden, and because we discovered that it wasn't about the corn, it was about Neil. We realized that in community gardening, as much as I thought it was all about the food, it wasn't. This is a picture of just a week and a half ago. This is the staff of Hiram Walker. About 150 of them came out this year to do projects throughout the garden and through the alleys and in all the areas that nobody, especially the City of Windsor workers, want to go. They make things beautiful. I don't even ask them. They come and they spend money on us. They invite us back for lunch. They're out there. This year, I gave them the glorious job of digging out our 9-year-old compost.
Oh, no.
These are 3, it was 16 feet long, and then on the other side it was 12 feet long, and they ripped them all apart and threw them into a big pile, and they took this beautiful soil, oh my gosh, it was so beautiful, and they spread it all over the garden beds that around plants and stuff like that, and then they built me 8 brand new ones out of cedar. Now that is community love. Digging out old compost. I was surprised. I kept asking, is finding any critters? No critters. So we didn't have any critters. It worked fine. I started to realize that in community gardens, it was more about the community and less about the garden. The garden was an attraction. It attracted people, it pulled people out of their homes, and it brought them to the garden. But once we got there, I realized that my community garden is not about gardening really at all. We do a lot of gardening, we talk gardening, we're passionate for our gardening, we help one another with gardening, but it was about the people. And so sometimes when we talk about urban ag and open spaces, we can think it's about the space or the openness or the garden, and really when it comes down to it, it always seems to be about us. I'm going to talk a little bit about community gardens, about industrial wastelands and urban blight, maybe a little bit about brownfields. We'll see how far we get. I tend to talk way too much, and I can talk forever on a single point. Someone in the room might recognize the famous and wonderful and awesome and local lady who said this. I realized that urban agriculture and open spaces and bioremediation and all this stuff was less about the actual doing of the stuff on the land and more about becoming more human humans. And I realized that if I was hoping to or are hoping to encourage others to change and transform our world, that really it was all about changing and transforming myself. Anyone recognize that famous lady on the screen, up the raspberry? Anyone know who might have said that? She's from Detroit, lived to be 100 years old. Pardon? Nope. Her and her husband have a center named after her. What was the famous lady across the river who said, we need to become more humans? No, Grace Lee Boggs. Grace Lee Boggs. You know, I put the change and transformation and I put it by raspberries. Did you catch that link there? That's why it's on raspberries. Which reminds me of a story about Fort City Community Gardens. We had this gentleman, his name was Wayne. Sometimes Wayne would sleep in the garden, sometimes Bill would sleep in the garden. Lots of people slept in the garden. But Wayne was there at 6 a.m. starting in about 2 weeks. Now Wayne passed away, but a number of years ago. But in about 2 weeks' time, the ghost of Wayne shows up at Fort City Community Garden. And if you look carefully around the raspberry bushes, you'll find the ghost of Wayne going by. Fist fights would break out, and they would break out in the early dawn because people were mad at Wayne, because Wayne was extremely attracted to our large raspberry field that we have at the front. They're really good, and people accused Wayne of stealing all the raspberries. But the rule is first come, first come with the raspberries and the cherries and every and the community stuff. First come, first serve. So Wayne got up in the morning and he would go and he would clean off that berry patch, and people were furious at him. And I would say, get there before Wayne. We can't get there before Wayne. He sleeps in the garden. Community gardens, we're all about the people, and it's appropriate that we're doing this talk in this social work building, beautiful new social work building, because sometimes with my social work interns, I'll say community gardening is 10% gardening and 90% social work. And it was a great way for up-and-coming social work interns to kind of cut their teeth and deal with some sort of conflict and stuff like that. I love taking interns. I got one now from Berlin, Connecticut. And I've had social work interns for quite a long time, and I love it. And that's why that raspberry, every time I look at this raspberry picture, I think of Wayne. I think of the sort of what happens and how, being in that community garden really brings, but Wayne needed that garden. Like, that garden was really important to him. There's these two benches that face one another, and I couldn't drive by that garden without seeing Wayne in his old shop shirt and baggy pants, sitting out there with his little margarine bowl full of raspberries or whatever you could find from the community bed. It was his safe place, and sometimes he'd be sitting there with his arch enemy Bill across, having coffee, sharing smokes, sort of thing. And one day, and Bill's still there, and Bill was always there. Bill can be somewhere else in Windsor and be at the garden at the same time. It's incredible. And Bill, about 5 years ago, Bill came up to me and he said, Steve, if it wasn't for this garden, I'd be dead right now. And he was crying, and he had to move, and he was just moving a block over, moved regularly. And if anyone's been to Fort City Community Garden, you know Bill. Bill does security in Drew Lard area all the time. And he has pylons out there. And I have he's got no phone, no internet, couldn't He doesn't even know what a Facebook account there, but he knows when every event is at the garden. He's there before the sun comes up and is ready for everyone. And urban agriculture, community gardening, you know. Wayne and his raspberries, and Bill. Tracy Boggs also said, we can begin by doing small things at a local level, like planting community gardens or looking out for neighbors. That is how change takes place in living systems. Not from above, but from within, from many local actions occurring simultaneously. I noticed something else that happened with urban agriculture and community gardens, and that was, all of a sudden, we weren't just coming together and getting to know one another, and so along the journey here, we're recognizing that community gardens, first we start out, everyone's there for the food, then we're there for the people, and then eventually in conversations, one of the things I noticed was that we do what most humans do. We start bringing up our gripes and our complaints, and if things were I just posted something on the garden out of frustration before we got here. I basically said, every year we get to this place where it doesn't rain for a long time, and despite the fact that we put in 2 new water barrels, these water barrels are useless because it hasn't rained. So if you're going to come, do your part and bring a little bit of water. I've brought 12 buckets in the last 2 days. Every year we ask our councillor to have the city put on a tap we will pay for, and then we'll pay for our water, and every year we hear someone from the city say, we'll look into it, and it doesn't happen. Where? We start to notice that in our talks in the gardens, people started to bring up things that they didn't like. And they started acting and doing things about it. Now, this is interesting because these weren't people like me who I love to get myself in the middle of a bee's nest, right? Just love it. Or Philippa there, Philippa and I, we were made for that kind of stuff. We don't mind. We're like lightning rods. We don't mind that at all. Like, you know what, bring it on, Goliath, and we walk right in, and we're ready to face the giants. These were folks who generally don't cross Walker Road, Tecumseh Road, Riverside, or George. Unless, and if you try to drag them past those neighborhood bound, they're kicking and screaming and hanging onto fences and trees. They don't want to leave their neighborhood. They don't want to be in the public eye. They don't want to be seen or heard like, it's not my thing. All of a sudden, there was this transformation. They were becoming, socially engaged with the issues in their neighborhood. And I thought, that's interesting. Because I would have never saw that person as engaged with talking to their city councillor. I would have never, ever dreamed of this person doing handbills door to door, and I certainly wouldn't have expected that person to sit on the Forest City Neighborhood Redevelopment Committee. And so we started with food, we moved into people, and now we're sort of like moving into change at the sunflower seed. I think that when I get a call for people who say, I'm really interested in community gardening, I want to get involved, and I sort of think of this line. I don't know if you recognize this famous line, but it's a line that it didn't come from Mr. Rogers. I'll tell you that. It came from the detective in the Hannibal Lecter series, Red Dragon, when he asks one of the characters if that he can borrow his imagination. because his imagination was, he was able to see posthumously crimes that had happened. And I think that this is a great line because, you know, when I look at that lot and when I hear people griping about change and stuff like that, I sometimes feel like asking them, can I borrow your imagination for a while? Let's sit down and talk about, you know, what do you see when you say you want to become more involved in community gardening? Because community gardening in urban agriculture means something different to everyone here. I mean, some people are going to nod when they hear other people say stuff, but saying that you wanted to be involved in some sort of community gardening or urban agriculture or a social transformation, man, that's wide open. And so you sort of have to say to the person, what do you see when you see yourself involved in this type of work? And as the email thread continues, it becomes clearer and clearer. One of, I guess we're up to 52 now, 52 community gardens would be the best fit for that person. So just before I keep talking, I want to pose that question to you right now. If you were to get involved in a community garden and you were to use your imagination about what it might be like and what you might be doing, what might that be? So go ahead and tell me, what do you see community gardening as when you think about community gardening? Weeding, yes. There's weeding. So, weeding is an interesting topic. Do you know that most gardeners don't weed? I can stamp and date that. They weed at the beginning of the season, and then they come and harvest their produce and leave the weeds for me to deal with in the fall. I have many years of like personal data I could apply to that. So it is true. Yeah, it's weeding. It's interesting too because do you know that a lot of new community gardening people, they don't think that weeds will grow in their bed at all. So it's interesting. I'm going to tell you about Elaine. There are some community gardeners that I have had bad thoughts about because I'll ask them to do something and they'll tell me that they've done something and I will think, that person has never done that their entire life and they keep telling me that they just did it. And I'll be standing there looking at it on the phone with the person and saying, you know, Elaine, I keep mentioning this to you, did you see your bed? It's all weeds. I was just over there yesterday and I weeded that bed. And in my head I'm thinking, liar. And so that is a really good point about community. Community gardening is about, we encounter this a lot. And so urban ag, community gardening, it's also recognizing that this is the first cucumber, you know, there's always that person in your garden. They still, you know, soon there's going to be 100 cucumbers, right? But they took the first one. And so, when you think about community gardening, sometimes I'll ask people, you know, are you like a solitary gardener where you like to just come and do your thing? Or do you like to be a part of a group, you know, a real social garden? And I can pick that up when they answer that question. That will help wean down what type of garden, you know. I'll ask them, are you good with people or you think people are idiots? You know, and I can tell which garden to push them towards. Or I'll ask them, you know, how much garden experience do you have? You know, what do you think about weeding your garden? And just by those types of answers, you can hear what type of garden they might want to be in. Now, remember our motto at Fort City, everyone is welcome to fail, and that's why Elaine still has the same box. Half of it is mint now, which is fine. I harvest it all and take it. This year was good. This year I got a phone call, and I was accused of letting somebody dig up all her Swiss chard when they were weeding her bed for her. And I said, Elaine, go home now. That's all I said. With 150 people there, they dug up my Swiss. I said, Elaine, I oversaw that bed. There was no Swiss chard in your bed. There were lots of weeds and lots of mint. Go home. But yeah, so urban agriculture is a part of that. Why? Because Elaine is part of our garden. She's always going to be a part of our garden. And that's her garden. It's not my garden.
Can I ask you a
Question? Yes.
So I'm trying to pick this. Do these people have their own gardens, or are they working on a garden as part of the
Perfect. Perfect question. Because that's a question that I would ask a person. How do you like the garden? Do you like the garden where all the beds are belong to all of us? Or do you want to have your own little raised box to take care of? At Fort City we have a mix. And we have a mix because when we along our pathways where a lot of traffic comes, we have lots of free stuff. That way when people take it, it's not stealing, it's a community bed. Right? We just reframe it. So it becomes acceptable behavior. So when people say, no, I want a garden in a garden where all the produce is just one big, I think, oh, that's perfect. You're describing this garden or that garden.
So there's a little of both.
In a lot of gardens, yes, that is the case. They have community, and this is something that we've shared in the Garden Collector, I've shared for a long time, was make sure you build this in along your pathways so that everyone knows they can take. Always have community beds. In some gardens, all the produce access community garden in Kingsville. No one has any beds. It's everything is everyone's. And it's run a little different. But so that's a very good question. Next thing you might want to ask about when you see yourself being involved in the community garden, what do you envision? We've got weeds, we've got my bed, community bed. What else do you see when you think about these utopian gardens? Yes?
Free nutrition.
Yes. That's really interesting too. One of the things that I noticed in community gardening is that I would go to people and, here's a great one. Wendy's bed is right beside Elaine's bed. Wendy's doing much better. This is year 2, and she's actually got stuff growing in her bed this year that resembles food. So it's fantastic. I'm really proud of Wendy Lou. And so, but when I looked at Wendy Lou's bed, I saw, this beautiful lettuce. And does everyone know the difference between like a head lettuce and leaf lettuce? Leaf lettuce is much more fragile. There's tons of varieties, just like head lettuce. Head lettuce kind of comes together and forms into like a head, or like a romaine head, or it comes together. And it, this firmness of it being packed together makes it perfect for a commodity to be able to harvest it and get some long life out of it and pack it up and send it millions of miles away and shipping things so it's not dead. Leaf lettuce, after a day or two, if it's not in the refrigerator, it's leaf slime. It's no good, except for the slugs, right? So, that's the difference between one is extremely fragile and tasty and all kinds of different. It also packs more nutrients because that which burns twice as bright, burns twice as fast. Blade Runner, sorry, I couldn't help it. A huge Blade Runner fan. So that was that line that from the movie where Roy Batty is confronting his creator, and he's got he finds out that he's got the robot guy finds out that he's got a life expectancy. Leaf lettuce is Roy Batty. So Roy's got an expiry date, so does the leaf lettuce. Their head lettuce will go a little longer, right? So I noticed this leaf lettuce in Randy Lou's, and I'm like, why isn't she harvested? I'm stressing out, I gotta get a hold of Wendy. Her leaf lettuce is getting really, it was deer tongue, it's the purple long ones, right? It's called deer tongue. And I'm thinking, I'm gonna take this lettuce, because we also have another rule at our community garden that says, eat it or lose it. So if you don't harvest your food, I let everyone know. I'll wait, I'll send you a message, I'll tell you, if you say mañana, I'm going to say in my belly. It's going to be gone. So, because I'm not going to let it waste, and then you're going to come to me crying, someone stole. No, I told you, if you're not going to eat it, I'm going to eat it. Or I'm going to dehydrate it, or I'm going to pickle it, or I'm going to ferment it, or I'm going to give it away to the youth center. I'm going to do something, but it's not going to be there because we're not going to have a garden. We're not going to be that garden that wastes food. I went back today. She cut the lettuce. I was so happy I saw that. But you bring this up, this nutrition thing, and I asked myself this question: why? Why was this food sitting in there? And I found out it was because people don't know what to do with it. They're growing it. They love the look of it. And so what is community gardening? What is urban agriculture? Not only is it the growing the food and the bringing of the people together and the confronting the facing the evils of the municipal politics and changing the world, but sometimes it's learning how to cook. So that affects the type of garden too. I'll often say, are you new to gardening? Do you have a garden at home? Are you a big, do you cook a lot of your own meals? Or are you just starting into this journey? And I might hear one of two stories. I'll hear, I just decided I want to start living a more active lifestyle. Okay, so someone told you have to get off your butt and eat healthy or something like that. Cute, got it. Or someone might go off and tell me about all the different projects and preservatives and jams and this rare vegetable, and they canned 150 jars of tomato sauce. And I'm like, okay, that's also telling me what kind of garden. I want that person in the garden that knows what to do with, wants lots of space, and et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, it is about nutrition, but it goes both ways because, sometimes people get involved in urban agriculture. In fact, Toronto and some of the larger cities are being accused of gentrified community gardens. All the white people come marching into the neighborhood today, I'm going to build a community garden like that, and the neighbors like, just like that, watching everything go by, and they come and they grow their food, and then they don't know what to do with it. I took my field class over to Earthworks Urban Farm on Monday, and Shane Bernardo took us through the Capuchin soup kitchen and came out. He stopped outside the door and he said, anybody notice something? Jumbo, my great big Jamaican student, he goes, they all white dudes. And Shane goes, exactly. And he's like, why? Sometimes community gardening is about addressing food apartheid and food autonomy. This is the part where half of my class goes, their head spins around in circles, or the other half gets upset because we were talking about this. But sometimes urban agriculture is about racism, about struggle, about dealing with elitism, gentrification. And so when we started the whole Windsor Essex Community Garden Collective, we made a promise to one another around the table that our gardens would never become things of beauty only. that they would be functionable gardens that do provide nutrition, and that if you were in charge of that garden, because all of our gardens are autonomous, they have people that are in charge of it. There's no one really paid, except for a few gardens that paid people, but I mean the good gardens don't have anyone paid doing it. Those are the good gardens. So those of us that do it because we just do it. But it is about nutrition, but as soon as we talk about nutrition, we get into some more interesting topics. And so sometimes community gardening is having to take a look in the mirror and address, what the hell are you doing there? You know, one of the things I love about Fort City Community Garden is I love the fact that the gardeners there live in the neighborhood. They live behind the garden. One gardener moved to the garden, another garden put a house closer to the garden. All of our beds in that area are by people who live in that area. So yeah, those were good questions. I'm going to keep moving because I could go on and on. But community gardening and urban ag and open and free spaces, you can start to see how they become so much more than just a place to grow some tomatoes. Because if you want to do that, you can grow a garden at home or on your patio. In fact, sometimes we get the occasional person who is a square carrot in a round carrot world. It seems like everything in the community garden bothers them. Do you know people like that? Just everything about everybody bothers them. They're not community gardeners. Those are backyard gardeners. And that's what I'll say to them. I'll say, you know, I think what you're looking for is a backyard garden. I mean, you love gardening, right? Yes, love it. But you can't stand people. Everyone at this garden bothers you. And so, no problem. Thank you for coming. So sometimes community gardens will reflect back something about ourselves. We learn something about ourselves. That's interesting. Humanity has always depended on the strength of their relationship with earth, land, and the waterways that surround them. Does anyone know the motto for the city of Windsor? What a crock of compost. I believe that. It is. It's true. But I don't really feel like our municipal government governs with that motto in mind. I think now we're sort of moving into a little more of the bioremediation stuff, but I really want to stress that, you know, our city was founded on that. The land and the river sustain us. But I would ask ourselves if we think that that is something that our government, our local government is honoring. I will ask to borrow your imagination for that.
Steve?
Yes.
I was wondering just on that point, I noticed that I was by the hospital job fair the other day, and they have a couple of small beds there. But I'm just thinking with the new city hall, like, you know, we try to get remove the whole list of things from the environmental committee, and it's, you know, it's a fake as far as the so-called reading of the new city hall, although it's not a bad looking building. But I'm just wondering if you community momentum to think about, because we're going to be redoing the Esplanade and something at City Hall itself, just like, you know, like the Bounds did at the White House and so.
You know that they never invited me to that meeting. I am sure that they will do something along that lines as far as beautification. But because, like we're going to talk about with brownfields and vacant lots, maybe if we get there, everything will be interpreted with how much is that going to cost us to continue and maintain on an annual basis.
But that's where they don't understand the stewardship aspect.
Oh, I agree with you.
I think they'll probably bring up liability too, but I mean, you can get hurt by a lot of students.
Yes, so I agree with you. I mean, I would certainly love to see a beautiful permaculture type garden, or like they have in Winnipeg at the Forks, an urban fruit garden at their farmer's market that runs 365 days a year with a craft brewery inside of it. Not jealous. General manager says, not jealous. Yes, I see that as a possibility, but let's go back to my first 3 slides. It requires vision. It requires someone to be able to see past dollar signs. It really comes down to someone's vision has to be championed to the death. And the last person that did that in that department is now running a golf course. One of our most future-thinking persons got sent to the golf course. Case in point. And so, I think it's up to us to say, what kind of future do we want? What kind of city do we want now? I mean, these are signs for Nuit Blanche in Edmonton. I love Nuit Blanche. I just think those are the best. And this is a chalkboard thing, and everyone gets to put all the different things that you want as you walk around or stumble around in the dark. And it says the world we want, and then everyone put there. This piano just sits out there all the time under this covered area, and these 2 girls are playing chopsticks. Or some Coldplay song, I can't remember. I'd had a few years at that point, I think. But it was full of children. 2 in the morning, families. What kind of city do you want? And then this brings me to another point when it comes to urban agriculture and community gardens is, why did I have to take those 3 lots and do something? Why hadn't someone else thought about that? There's 52 community gardens now across Windsor and Essex County. I just saw the updated stats from someone. And 46 when I finished up my role at United Way. And 52 now, and I'm thinking, we could have had 52 10 years ago. Why do we have 52 now? You know, people are like, it's spreading. You know, when it comes to urban agriculture, when it comes to community gardens, it really is about people saying, you know, I'm really not happy with the city XYZ, and I want to see it changed. And so, how many times have you heard a municipal government, not very often, maybe in places like Portland and stuff like that, you hear it, but not around here. How many times do you hear a municipal government say, you know, we're doing this really a bad job of this. Look at all these holes across the city. We need to make, you know, we can put a playground in there, or a splash pad right there in the middle of the neighborhood. Or, you know what, the poor farmer's market, you know, it's pouring rain, and we make them go through all this rigmarole all the time. Why don't we build them something when we're building a city hall? Wouldn't it be a great time to give them a beautiful covered area that they could do stuff in? Why don't we just, like, do it for them? And so, we realize that these projects that we're talking about, they come from the ground up. They, you know, they start just like those sunflowers I was telling you about, and grow, you know. And first there is me and Chris over at, and Rita, you know, from the campus community garden in Fort City. There's 2, then there's 5, then there's 10. And, you know, now we've got a whole field of sunflowers or community gardens, but it's sort of spreading, like Jerusalem artichokes, right, or sunchokes. It's sort of spreading, and we're hoping that they'll be permanent like that. You know, never get them out again, like that mint in the Lane's box. Right? It'll always be there forever and ever now. But, you know, it's times like this that we ask ourselves, you know, what do we want our future city to look like? And what are we going to do about it? And we're, you know, in talking about these scenarios, community gardens, vacant lots, stuff like that, we realize that it has to be us, you know. For instance, when we talk about the brownfield plan, the pile of money that sits there, because we all know that's public knowledge, there's a pile of money sitting there. And I'm not, you know, I appreciate what the city is doing and how it's moving forward. I just wish it would go a little faster and that it would make the processes a little easier for those of us who are wanting to do good things. Oh, what the? I'm back. Unfortunately, what we realize is that often the stuff that gets attention in any form of government, which we need good government, and there are great people in government locally. Unfortunately, the reason that a lot of it happens, it's for commercial uses. It's for capitalist projects that are moving forward. And that's where the money gets spent. And you know, that's why you see a gazillion dollars go for something, and then you see a 6-hour argument over dispersing $5,000 to somebody. And you'll see it in any city. It's not just Windsor. But because you back it up and say there's going to be all this industry coming in and we're going to have jobs coming in, it just got so much more yes behind it. Besides someone coming and saying, you know, we got this vacant lot over here we want to do some gardening on, but you know, it's going to require the city to spend maybe $700 to take away the rubble, or $700. Did you use $700? You have to pay for the $700. Yeah, we'll pay for the $700. You know, but $10 million. I mean, you know, money's flying out. And you ask yourself why, and that's because often when we talk about urban agriculture and stuff like that, it doesn't come with tax money coming in. You know, like how much. One of the major decisions, and this is another thing that this topic brings up, but one of the major hurdles was there was an argument that these 3 lots on Drewline Road, if developed, could bring in X number tax dollars, and we would have to forfeit that. And people's heads thinking about where those vacant lots were being, you know, and the possibility of people setting up shop there again, their heads were spinning in circles. They're going, is this guy serious? You know, this person from this department thinks that these lots are in jeopardy of giving, you know, we're going to get taxed. So it did pass. But that was the initial thought. That's why when people say to me, I had someone say to me, oh, it's a beautiful spot on Main Drag there on Olette. We could do a garden right there by that mural. It'll be awesome. Not in a million years. Because that is prime land that can be used for commercial use. And so there's this whole understanding that a lot of times our desire to do good stuff comes up against megabucks. And that those megabuck projects, many of them are really good, but we have to head into this realistically. I went and I spoke at this York University graduate conference. It was terribly organized. I was so disappointed, but it had wonderful Persian food. So there was a plus to it. And my talk was on you know, whether or not brownfield remediation and community gardens were just a utopian idea. And so it looked at that question, right? But we have to admit that sometimes the only reason things get bioremediated is because they want to put up another strip plaza. And that's true. That's what the research shows. I can show you all that research, because that's where the dollars come in. The dollars are assigned in that direction. So I can't go and say, oh, $20,000 I can bioremediate that with a whole bunch of phyto remediation of sunflowers, and maybe some mushrooms and stuff like that. And that little useless triangle piece of land over by the railroad tracks will be perfectly new in about 5 years. I can say that because after about 8 years, I've got 7 inches of new soil in Fort City Community Gardens horizon where the old zero horizon used to be in the new. There's beautiful soil, and people have got their ears plugged because they don't want to listen to me anymore. Because they're like, we're not interested, Steve. You can't have $20,000 to grow sunflowers on an old piece of land that no one's going to build a store or a park or anything like that. I realize it's a good project, but realistically, Starbucks isn't interested in that site. Yes?
It just seems to me, though, we just have to do a better job of bringing people in 2018. They're going to think the way that you're describing. We're not going to convert the people that are there right now into that kind of thinking.
And to people's credit, the people that are deciding that or telling you that are doing their jobs. They're doing their jobs because their job is not to go out and find us great pieces of land to bioremediate and to heal the land, which brings us to these three things. Absolutely, Fort City the Fort City Community Garden is the process of building the garden there. It cleaned it up. It cleaned up the neighborhood. It cleaned up the alleyway. It is, people go there and they have parties and wedding photos and we sit there and have fun and sometimes curse and swear. Pick up beer bottle. But I mean, people, it is making it safer. And in bioremediation, we are doing that to a lot of lots, that have commercial development on. They are taking out tanks and they are scraping off contaminated soil in the air. But it's usually because something commercial is going there, right? So we're making it safe if you don't stay there too long, or if you don't roll around in the dirt or stuff like that. And then the next stage, as we move forward, we're moving forward in time now, and now the new word is we want to make things sustainable. I could puke when I hear that word. Because when you say sustainable, it means you want it to stay the same. You don't want to improve upon it, and you definitely don't want to spend the money to make that resilient again. And so, beyond the commercialized brownfield remediation, my shtick or my promotion is that we go back to healing the earth again, and that becomes one of our values. That we leave it better than when we found it, and we're not doing that. No brownfield remediation plan says we're going to make that site better than when we found it, and we're going to spend the money we need to spend until we could lick the ground, and there would be no worries. No one's doing that. It's ridiculous, they would say. And I've learned more about people than I wanted to know about them in the community garden. I hear everything. Much of it I don't want to hear. Because it's often about what she said to the neighbor, and did you hear what happened to Lee the other night, and did you know he fell over the fence and ripped off half his, and then on and go, and you're just like, and you're weeding, and they will, my student Lauren from Berlin, Connecticut, she said, I asked her how she made out, she goes, Bill followed me around for 3 hours? I go there, he just followed me there, and he would talk, and then I asked her yesterday how she made out, because she was harvesting some herbs for me, and she goes, do you know that Neil, he followed me around for 2 hours? That's community gardening. You don't like that? Then I definitely know where not to send you. But these are the types of things that, all these different things, are happening and occurring. And I guess really why I love it. This is from Barry Horban, now the chair of the United Way board right now, co-chair I think, and a huge believer in neighborhood improvement, and works for the Windsor Police Force, of course. He said, once vacancy and blight has established itself, it acts as a cancer to the surrounding neighborhood. It triggers social deterioration. And I love that Barry put that out there like that, because really, if I was to sum up why I do what I do and why I believe in making the city better with urban agriculture and community gardens, it's because it defines the type of city that I want to see. A place where I don't have to have a monthly pass to go. A place that I can go and not be judged because I only grew radishes and people think that's weird or something like that. And there are people that grow just like, I can go there and I can do my thing. And so when I look at this whole movement, I think about what Barry said and how he saw that as well. And he has been one of the huge supporters of what we do at the community gardens and has been a supporter of it for the other target neighborhoods as well. I just sort of want to end with that. Let me just check on. I was really bothered with what happened in Brazil. And I asked the question, why should the citizenry suffer the fate of forced relocation for a non-essential commercial build in order to make a city and a developer profit? Is this type of brownfield remediation nothing more than a greed-driven plan to capitalize on cheap inner-city land? And is it remediation? And I think that that's why we have to allow for these types of projects to move forward. Painted tires and murals on walls and guy and girl groups that go and have like painting parties and people going there to take pictures. And the other day I walked into the garden, they were shooting a commercial, and I think that's why we need this, is because is it remediation if all we're doing is treating it like our garbage, which is just sealing it into a large pile so it can't decompose, so it's there for our children's. Is that remediation? Rarely, if ever, after the cleanup and redevelopment does true remediation occur, cleaning up or containing soil and groundwater contaminants and deconstructing or demolishing derelict buildings. That's because usually what we see governments commit to is just a dust and clean, just a surface, like the old Grace Hospital site, that beautiful green grass laying out there. Someone said that'd be the perfect place for a farm if you want to die. It's not remediated. You can't farm on that land. It looks good, the grass is there, but it's just window dressing. Bioremediation, phytoremediation, dealing with the harm that we've done to our city does not deserve window dressing. And so, urban agriculture, community gardening, is an admission that we've got to do more than just window dress. I'm just going to leave this up here, but I'm going to stop at 7:40. This blowhard has talked way too much, and so I'm just going to open it up for any type of questions on all the propaganda and nonsense that has spouted out of my mouth tonight. And anything anyone wants to ask me, from Basil to the toxicity of rubber tires, I'm up for it. Yes. Yes.
I'm redoing my front lawn, and it's now become a butterfly station. And how do I do the bees?
Are you talking about like a pollination garden?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll get more fruits and vegetables having the bees. But how do I do a Windsor beekeep?
Yeah. So that's interesting. The first thing you want to ask yourself is, do you want that area that you are planting in your front yard? Do you want it to be permanently like that, or if you only want it to be temporary like that? Because if it's temporary, you can go get some like pollinator seed that they sell for bees. It's called a pollination mix, right? And it has all kinds of flowers that bees love. If you're doing a more permanent thing, then I would encourage you just to put in the Google plants that bees like, and you're going to see things like the sunflowers are going to come up, and you're going to see, you know, all kinds of wonderful permaculture plants you can throw in there. Bushes like boysenberries. You'll come in there for vines. You're going to see stuff like borage with these pretty little cucumbery taste borage. You know, that's the number one. There's something about that little purple flower that's like crack cocaine to bees. They just love that little purple star flower. I mean, I don't know why. It's all infrared. We can't see why, but it just lights up like a Christmas tree to them. So you have to ask yourself: do you want it to be permanent? Do you want it to be just for the season? So, you know, anything with lots of little flowers are often really, really good.
Because
So,
I've yet to see a honeybee. So that's...
we just planted it, right? And there might not be a hive near you. They've got to find it. And then the other one goes back, does a little butt wiggle thing and says, follow me, I found a new source. So, plus they're just sort of, right now they're focusing on fruit trees and fruit vines. That's their mainstay. That's their 7-Eleven right now. They're out in the orchard, anything that's in blossom. Think about what's in blossom. Think like a bee. They're going to go to the most number of food is. You're like 4 flowers. They're not going to travel like a mile. They're like, all right, I found 4 flowers. Great. You know, if you had a whole yard of flowers right now, you'd see bees. Or if there was a history of flowers be there, they'd be there. They'd come back, right? But right now, so that's my thoughts. I'm not professional. Yes?
I was wondering if you see the potential opportunity, like at the Greyhound, former Greyhound bus station, since the university owns that, and it's actually, you know, the university got $15 million from the city to, you know, help their downtown campus and that. Now that parking lot beside where the bus bay used to be, in that where the market used to be, like I imagine underneath that asphalt is not too good. Gravel and diesel.
I don't even know what the plans are, what they're going to do with it.
But
So.
say if the university decided to put a restaurant there as well as a university art gallery and employ students there in both, and have herb gardens and stuff around there, you'd likely have to put them in containers rather than, you know, because it takes a long to remediate the soil to get up and running right away out of the asphalt. But
It's very easy. It require less than a day's planning. It's certainly very easy. So it's possible. It's more about, is there a will? And is there someone that wants to sustain that, you know, continue it going?
Given your role at the university now, do you think that there's any avenues of input there? I'd be glad to...
I think there would be. That's something I'll keep in mind. I'm going to the Fighting Island with the Dean of my department tomorrow, so I'll just throw that out there too. Say, or garden at any of our sites. I mean, yeah, I think that there's possibility. Many universities have groups that are growing food for their own restaurants. I know York had a co-op that was doing that, but lots of universities have that type of. There's lots of potential for that. So, but if you talk to Tanya Bassick or if you talk to Chris Reed, one of the things that you'll find out is that the program has to deal with the transient nature of not the homeless, but the students, because they're sometimes homeless, but not to be confused with the homeless, the transient nature of students, and that is for 8 months of the year, they're gangbusters, 4 months of the year you can't find them. And then during midterms and universities, don't expect them to be available to do any volunteering because, you know, they're all stressed out. So, you know, that I only know that from a personal experience. So then once again, that's why I think that, you know, that's why I like to think that good community organizations have public-private partnerships where you have people that are there all year round and aren't going anywhere, and then you have a ready-made influx of laborers that come in and are part of it. And when they're stressed out trying to get papers done for school, there's still someone there to take care of things. I like that partnership. In fact, when someone comes to me and asks about a community garden, I say, is this your idea? Yes, I've had a brainstorm. I'm like, well, community gardens are not a Lone Ranger kind of scenario. Unless you have buy-in from all the people around you, do not start your community garden. It's a bad idea. I'll put your name on the list, and when I get more phone calls or emails about community gardens in your area, I'll hook you guys up, and we'll get your community garden going like we did in South Carolina. Right. Don't take on a community garden as a solo project, because that's not a community garden, because you're missing the community. So yeah, that's a great idea. I like it. I think that having student-based projects are awesome for 8 months of the year, and 4 months of the year, you're in a hot mess. Sorry for all of us that are students, and I'm just being honest. To my own fault, yes?
So if I were to, out of the 52 gardens that there are, if I wanted to help, what would I Google to find which gardens are close to me and what?
Oh, you could send me an email, just like everything, or you could go to the wegarden.ca website, www.wegarden.ca website, and there's multiple places you can send out a query. Myself or Rob Ross will get to it, and we'll put you in touch with gardens that are in your geographical area. We'll ask you probing and uncomfortable questions to find out what suits you best. Are you uncomfortable around strangers or people that just walk up to you and start telling you their life story? Don't come to Fort City, right? So, are you a terrible gardener and stubborn? Come to Fort City. So that's what I would recommend. And 311 has our number too. So people call 311, they get our email address, they send us an email and say, I was thinking about this or that. Are you in a wheelchair? No. Have you got a car? No. Ah, where do you live? That limits where you're going to get to. You're not going to travel way across the city to a permaculture garden, even though it's your best fit, if it requires a 40-minute bus trip. Not to be not uncommon in Windsor.
Yeah. Buses.
You know, so, yes?
How about Board of Education's like student volunteer hours? Is we sort of liaison with that?
Yeah, we do that, and we do student co-op placements. I have a co-op placement this year. I have a love-hate relationship with my high school co-op placement teams. So sometimes I love them, sometimes I want to ship them back. You know, they're sometimes a little flighty. Occasionally you get a gem, but often, you know, you work really hard for the hours of work that you get out of your high school co-op students. Occasionally you get really good with them. Yes, we do, and we put people in touch with them if they say they need more 40 hours. And for the last 10 years, we ran Change the World, which got, you know, up to 700 people a year out in community gardens through the United Way program, the Ministry of Citizenship. That came to an end this year. But yeah, we love to do that. So often I get the call from the teacher or the guidance counselor, and then I put them in contact with the closest garden to their school. So, Megan?
When you mentioned the meeting, it just came to cross my mind that maybe they don't know which one is good, which one is not. So, is there any opportunity for like learning what are the weeds, what are the good ones?
Yeah, so we do series at the library occasionally. Often, it comes down to all of this happens on a volunteer basis from all of us. So what usually happens is the garden is hosting stuff, like the individual garden groups are hosting stuff for their folks. Occasionally we put stuff out to the public in the spring, in the down season before before the ground is thawed and we can really get out there. We tend to do a little more at the public libraries. At that time we do workshops and identifications and stuff like that, and the library has a full-time person that just sends out stuff that we do. So, but we usually go through Christine Arkell, and she promotes what we do. But we usually do that in the off-season when folks like myself aren't as busy. So we post them up on the We Garden website too, or the Facebook site that is coming up. But yeah, and we could literally do that every week. If someone was paid, they could do that every week, because and I'm always surprised on a beautiful night like this, 30 people will come out. I'm like, what are you people doing here? It's beautiful outside. Go outside, or let's go do it. Because people just love to learn stuff like that. So, more questions? Yes.
So if people want to start their own gardens, like say guerrilla gardening or something, how are you supposed to tell which land is okay and if there's not like chemicals, and do you have to pay to get it tested, or just plant stuff and hope for the best?
Right. So, if I was a guerrilla gardener, and I have been in the past, I would be hesitant to guerrilla garden in land that I thought was questionable. There is a vacant lot map that the city has. There are also private citizens that have done maps about vacant sites. The thing with soil and soil contamination and wondering if it's safe to eat stuff that's growing there is you have to start to think about what types of foods have a heavy uptake in their roots and will actually, am I going to get sick from it? Yeah. So I like to share this example with people. Even if the soil in my own garden was in some way had some trace contaminants in it, I would have to single-handedly eat only the stuff in that garden for